just either a slightly different from what they are, or we talk, you see things are not normal.
Welcome to Strange Familiars. If you've had an encounter with something strange, something unusual, something paranormal, and you'd like to be on the show, you can email us, strangefamiliarspodcast@gmail.com. If you want to email your story and have us read it, that's fine too. Just make sure you note in your email that it's okay to share your story on the podcast. Before we get going, I want to thank our patrons as always. Strange Familiars is brought to you by our patrons at Patreon. Without our patrons, we could not make the show, so thank you so much, patrons. If you'd like to help us continue to make Strange Familiars and get extra shows besides, consider becoming a patron at Patreon. That's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. $3 a month gets you extra shows, but there's other levels of support there as well. If you want to go in at a higher level, you can get things like t-shirts, stickers, and more. Go ahead and check it out at patreon.com/strangefamiliars. If you don't like the idea of a subscription like Patreon and you still want to help out, there is a paypal.me link in the show notes at strangefamiliars.com. You can make a one-time donation using that link. And you can help the show as well by giving us nice 5-star reviews at iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts, subscribing to our YouTube channel, which is Strange Familiars, and by sharing the show on social media. Tonight's show is one I've been wanting to do for a long time. I'll be talking with Jeremy from Texas. Jeremy was on Sasquatch Chronicles, probably a little over a year ago, I think. And he described Bigfoot Eyeglow, not eye shine, Eyeglow. And it sounded a lot like the lights we were seeing at Site 7. In fact, that's the first thing that really convinced me what we might be seeing there is Eyeglow. So I was really excited to talk to Jeremy. And he shared some other great stories with us too. Stories about some ghosts he's seen in a field while he was hog hunting, and orbs, and of course the Bigfoot Eyeglow story, and some other Bigfoot encounters as well. So I was really excited to interview Jeremy and get the story on Strange Familiars.
Dude, I just saw a light shoot across the sky. That's crazy. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. It's completely dark out here, and I just saw it wasn't a shooting star. It was something that shot across the sky. It may have been a comet, I guess, or a meteor or something. I don't know. It's strange.
Well, that's a good place to start. We'll start with
right. I know, star. Right? That's so cool.
So we're talking with Jeremy, who has some Bigfoot stuff and some strange light stuff, which, I mean, to me, it sounds a little bit like the lights I've been seeing in Site 7, and just all around, strangeness. And let's just jump right into it. What got you into, looking into this stuff? I know you have kind of some particular areas you go to look for Bigfoot, but what got you, even to go out in the first place?
Yeah, Tim. Well, I had an encounter when I was, and I didn't know it at the time. I was 16 years old, up in the hill country at my grandparents' cabin, way off in the middle of nowhere, and I was hunting, and I was driving at the time. I can't remember. I was 15, and my parents just let me borrow the car, because you're not supposed to drive till you're 16. But I'm thinking I was 15. Anyway, I went up the road to my uncle's place, and he had some land with a deer stand on it. There were no other houses within a couple of miles. And like I said, my grandparents lived in a log cabin on a river up in the hill country, and just tons of cedar trees and caves, and just It's real hilly, not mountainous, but hilly. I remember it was real cold, and I got in the deer stand, and I sat in there till about 9 o'clock, got out. I said, I'm just going to drive these back roads because there's nobody out here. I'm just going to drive around and see if I see any deer. And there are tons of deer up in this area. So I'm just driving around, and I go around a corner, and I see a monkey go across the road. He's on all fours. So I just think, and it's not a big one. Like, looking back, I'm wishing that I saw a big one, so there'd been a no doubter. So I just thought it was like something weird, like an escaped chimpanzee or something like that, And I didn't get a good look at the face. It was going right. It came out right in front of me, but it was going away from me. And I went back. I thought that was strange. I went back to my grandparents' log cabin, and I asked my parents and my grandparents, and I was like, does anybody have monkeys out here? And they're like, no. They said there's been a couple of reports of black panthers being sighted, but no monkeys. So, I just kind of put that out of my mind. I didn't know. The only thing I knew about Bigfoot is I thought it was just like a legend, of maybe one or two up in the Midwest. I mean, up in the western part of the United States, mm-hmm. Oregon and California and Washington State, I took it as a joke, kind of. It was something that was the furthest thing from my mind at the time.
So was it about the size of a chimpanzee?
It was, looking back, it seemed like it was bigger. If I would say, if it stood up, it was probably about 6 foot.
But it was hunched over.
It was hunched. It was on all fours.
Mm-hmm.
It was on all fours. It was on all fours and went across.
Was it running like you see apes run when they're on all fours?
Yes, kind of like a sideways, kind of weird looking gallop.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't stop and look around or anything. I wish I would have stopped and maybe got out. Maybe I shouldn't have either.
Right.
Because I'm sure, being as small as it was, I say small because, that's kind of small for one of these creatures, but I'm pretty sure that there was probably, a mom or dad. They travel in clans anyway, from everything I know, and
yeah,
I've heard, they hunt together and they stay together as a family. So
I think there's wisdom in the old saying: if you see one, there's at least one more you're probably not seeing.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of times I think that there's decoys. You know what I mean? Like, you're hearing one and making you look, hearing a knock or some kind of whoop one way. Well, what's going on behind you? Or
Yeah. We've noticed that at that area we call Site 7 that we go to. Our attention gets drawn by sounds. So a sound will happen, and then we'll look in the direction of the sound, even though we can't see much. It's nighttime, and
right.
but we're focused in that direction. And then we've often noticed that we think stuff's happening, like we think it's done for a purpose. Something makes a sound in one direction to draw our attention there, and then something happens behind us when we're looking. There's usually two of us when we're both looking in one direction. So we try not to do that. We try to stand, face to face and look over each other's shoulders.
Right. I think that's pretty smart because I've observed that too, where I hear a whoop or usually it's a tree knock. I hear a lot of tree knocks, and but then I'll hear a tree knock and then I'll hear movement, something heavy walk in or footfalls behind, in the opposite direction,
mm-hmm.
or a stick break or whatever. But skipping forward, I don't know if you want to ask any more questions about that first.
I guess at the time you weren't thinking Bigfoot then, right? You're thinking
at all. Yeah. No, wasn't not at all. But it's not until I was probably in my mid-30s, around 34, 35. I had knee surgery on my knees, and I was off work for a little while, and I was bored, and I was just looking around on YouTube and I saw something about Bigfoot, and I started looking into Bigfoot, and it was interesting. And I started thinking of why am I so interested in this? I never really, I didn't have too much paranormal things happen growing up. Just had one incident where I saw a ghost clearly in a field, and that could have been part of what got me interested in it. When I was probably. I was around 30 probably, and we were out in the field. We were hog hunting, me and another guy, and I see and hear people talking, and they're on horseback, and I can see them. They're kind of translucent. So we put our flashlights down or turn them off, and we're kneeling down, and the guy with my friend with me was like, "What is that?" I wanted to hear him say something first, to verify. I'm like, he goes, "What the hell is that?" I was like, "I don't know. Just be quiet, And they walked right past us, and there was 7 or 8 guys, and a few of them were walking, and a couple of them were on horseback. They would have seen us. I mean, they would have seen our lights. Before we turned them off. It was kind of an open field. And then they go down and they come back the other way. It was just very odd. It scared the shit out of us. It was obviously ghosts, like they were, I don't know, like maybe that's what they used to do. Maybe they used to patrol their field a long time ago or something,
So this was multiple figures, like multiple
figures, even horses. Yeah.
Wow.
And you could see them, but they were translucent, in the back of my mind, I was like, they're not real. They're not real. I'm thinking, but what if they are? Are they going to shoot us? And they start coming back towards us. I said, "Come on, let's go." We got in my car, my truck, and we left.
But two of you saw them.
We both saw them. Yeah, we both saw them. Wow. Completely sober, hog hunting. We both saw them, and we both saw the same thing. And it just totally tripped us out. I was like, "Holy crap!" And this is in a small city, kind of by where I live, but it's a lot of farmland, a lot of rice fields, stuff like that. And then there's woods, sparse, there's woods around a lot of the rice fields. So they have hog problems, hogs come into the rice fields. And a buddy of mine, he let people go out there and hunt them because they don't want them. They're a nuisance. So anyway, so that happened. It's kind of off topic, I guess.
Not for strange familiars, no. And I have to ask one more question. What were they? Did you know? Did they seem like they were dressed in modern clothes or old timey clothes, or did you?
I couldn't tell. You know what? I couldn't really tell. I just got the sense that they were old, and I don't remember why. I don't remember. I mean, I couldn't tell you what they were wearing. I really can't tell you what they were wearing. I can't even tell you what they were saying, but you could tell they were talking.
Right.
I could hear voices. I could hear their voices. I could even hear kind of the horses, the footsteps of them, but I could not tell you what they were wearing. It just seemed, thinking back, it seemed like it was just kind of like black and white. But
did you ever go back to that area?
I have, and I've got more stories about that exact area.
Oh, really?
I've seen orbs of light in this field, and the cool thing is it's not too far from my house, so
wow.
I go out there and park sometimes, and I just went out there again just to see, and this was years later. This was several years after that. I went out there just to, I was going through a bad breakup, and I was just going out there spending some time, just thinking or whatever. And so I just pulled up there and was like, "Hey, let's see what I see." I'm just staying. I stayed in my Jeep, and just I played on my phone, and there's a lot of airplanes that fly over this particular area, and it's just kind of like a hub, kind of like their travel path or whatever. Well, I started noticing these balls of light coming up over the trees. And at first I thought it was an airplane, but then it just kind of hovered there. And then it was floating. And that one night I saw like 5 different ones.
Wow.
And it would it would disappear. And I would see as many as 3 of them at a time, just kind of floating around. I saw one pretty close to me. You know, the first ones I saw were kind of far away, and then I look off to my left, and probably within 75 yards, there's one comes floating up, and then they just disappear. And then you'll see them again, and they float back up.
Roughly, how big are they?
The ones I was seeing that night were probably about like a basketball, I would say.
And white-ish?
At that distance.
They have any colors?
You know, they did not. They were white. These particular ones were just white lights.
Mm-hmm.
But it looked like a ball of Christmas lights.
And they were in that same field.
In that same field. Now, they weren't just floating over that field. They were floating back behind. There were some trees back in there,
Mm-hmm.
But this all happened right around this field. And I don't know what's going on out there, but it's a hot spot for activity.
Wow.
As far as this supernatural, just unexplained activity going on out there. And there's people that live. I mean, there's houses. There's houses all around there. They're farmers. It's a big farming place, and there's not a lot of houses, but I can see houses from where I'm sitting at this field. I can see houses and the lights, and there's 1 or 2 houses to my left, and then there's there's like almost like a little subdivision way back in there, and some of the lights were coming up over that area, and it was not drones. They were not drones. This is 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And they have a floating motion.
Yeah.
They kind of just float around.
Mm-hmm.
And then they disappear, and then they'll pop up somewhere else. I don't know if it's the same.
I've told the story a couple of times on the podcast, but I saw one on the farm when I was a little kid. I grew up on a farm in Maryland, and I asked my mom. I remember I was like, Mom, what is that? Because it looked bigger than a firefly. It wasn't blinking on and off.
Right.
I was looking at it it was about 100 yards away. It was a little grove down by our barn, and I'm at the house, I'm looking down. And my mom said, "Oh, that's a will-o'-the-wisp." And she was very casual about it. So I thought it was something natural. I didn't think it was anything supernatural because she was so matter-of-fact about it. And I thought...
Like a will-o'-wisp?
She said will-o'-the-wisp, but I thought when I was a kid, I thought she said willow-wisp, and I thought it had something to do with willow trees. So I thought it was something, something to do with willow trees. And I never, at the time, I only saw it that once, as far as I remember. And at the time, I just thought it was some kind of natural thing. She was so matter of fact about it. I didn't know it was anything special. And in fact, I probably walked away. I probably looked at it for a minute and walked away. Now I wish I would have stared at it longer and paid more attention to it. But I was just a little kid.
Right. And there's a couple of locations out there real close to that field that I've seen different kinds of lights and just weird phenomenon. One of them, one night I was out there, and I was hog hunting again on the guy's land, and I get out, I got complete darkness, just complete darkness in this one area that there's not any houses, and a little bit further down from where I'm talking about, it's just complete darkness. No street lights or anything like that. So I pull into the gate, and I open the gate, and I'm just walking down this the road. There's just a trail, kind of a road that they've made, and a lot of tall grass and reeds. It's actually a refuge, but these people have been grandfathered in because they've had their land out there for so long. So it's a real good place to hog hunt. So I'm walking down this path, and you don't see hardly any cars out there ever. And all of a sudden, there's this, like, brake lights right next to my Jeep. Well, look like brake lights. I'm like, who the hell is that? I better go back and check. I'd locked my Jeep, and I was armed, so I walk back and see what's going on. Maybe it's a cop or something like that. I don't know. So walking up there, and I never saw this car coming. I didn't see headlights. This car didn't have headlights. I just saw brake light. It looked like brake light.
Right.
Start walking towards my Jeep, and I get probably 20 yards from my Jeep, and this thing just shoots off. And it looks like brake lights, but it's something imitating brake lights. And then it sits down at the end of this road. This road goes across kind of a busy road about 2 miles down. Well, probably not even that far, about mile and a half down. It goes across kind of a busier road. And these lights sit there for a long time. Then they kind of just start moving back and forth, and then they disappear. And then I'll look away for a little bit, and then they reappear. And not a car's come by, and nothing. I mean, it's strange. Very, very strange. In fact, I got it. I got in my Jeep and left at that point because, something doesn't want me out. Something just.
I was going to ask you, so when you go hog hunting or something, or you're out at night or out in the dark, presumably from your experiences, you're what we would call a believer or a knower, not just a believer, rather.
Right.
You've seen them. You know they're out there, these things, and other weird stuff besides Bigfoot. You ever get freaked out, going out there?
I do. I did at first. Like when the first time I saw them, I really did. But it's like I become used to it to where it doesn't bother me as bad now. Mm-hmm. Because I've seen so many strange things, especially up in the national forest that we haven't even talked about yet. But the first time I saw these things in that particular field where I was telling you about, the ghost, and it freaked me out. It gave me a weird vibe. I was wondering what the hell. Something's going on, something. I will say that there are a lot of there's a lot of radio towers, and there's a lot of cell phone towers, a lot of power lines that run to this area. There's a chemical plant not too far down the road, so there's a lot of high voltage, and I almost wonder if that has something maybe to do with it. That's the only thing that I can, or it's some kind of spirits, Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's something. It's like the more I look into it, the more questions I have.
Yeah.
About these balls of light. And
the lights are so fascinating to me. I mean, all around, and of course we'll get into more of that a little bit later. But
right.
I'm sorry, I knocked you off track big time. So you were saying you were laid up with the injury and you started looking into Bigfoot.
I started looking into Bigfoot before I saw this light phenomenon. I'd seen the ghost stuff prior to looking into Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that had happened paranormal to me growing up, was that ghost. Other than seeing that monkey crossing the road, which I didn't know was paranormal or anything strange at the time. I thought it was strange, but, not. I just thought maybe it was an escaped chimpanzee or something.
Right.
Something got me interested into Bigfoot, and I started looking into it, and the videos were compelling. And, of course, I saw the Patterson Gimlet, and I saw the breakdown of that. M.K. Davis did a really good job on breaking it down to where, he cleaned it up real well, and you could see the muscle definition, and, you could see lesions or, hair matted on it. And to me, that was a real creature. There was no doubt after watching that. So,
I agree. I absolutely tend to agree. They just didn't have the costume tech back then.
No, the best they had. They were in Hollywood. I think at the time they were making the what was the show? The monkey.
Planet of the Apes.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Planet of the Apes. And even Hollywood said we have nothing that can duplicate that.
Yeah.
Their costumes weren't even that good. So,
I wrote about the Patterson film in the book I'm writing now with Josh Cutchin, the one I'm working on right now. And the funny thing is, basically I'm writing about it in a chapter on missing evidence that I wrote, because a lot of evidence disappears with this stuff. And the original film, they don't know where it is. There's rumors that it's in one film warehouse or another, or some lawyer has it, but they really don't. For all intents and purposes, it's the original actual film is gone. Now we have some good copies, thankfully. But
Right.
Patterson's original like film canisters, nobody knows exactly where they are. So I was writing about that, and I have to get into the other side of the issue, which is that Bob Hieronymus guy says, he was the guy in the costume. Well, the interesting thing about that is he can't produce a costume either. So no matter what side of the fence you're on that issue, the evidence is missing, which I find very, very, very interesting, very poetic. But no, I personally think it's way beyond the costume tech at the time.
Even if you were to put a man in a suit, if you were gonna hoax a Bigfoot especially at that time, why put breasts on it?
Mm-hmm. That's a big one. And the arm extensions are huge. Like, they didn't even think about doing things like arm extensions in costumes back
Right.
then.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So yeah, there's no way they could have put that muscle definition and stuff in it that we've seen. But there's a lot more to that story. There's a lot more. I don't know if you probably have, since you're writing a book about it. Sounds like you do. There's a lot more to that whole Patterson-Gimlin, but I won't go into that. That's a whole different.
Yeah, that could be a series of shows. I think you could probably
absolutely. Yeah, but anyway, so the more I looked into these Bigfoot videos on YouTube, I started seeing that hey, they're not just in the Northwest. There's a lot of sightings in Texas, and there's a lot of sightings in Sam Houston National Forest and all through the piney woods of East Texas, So that got me very interested. So I started, when I had time or days off or whatever, I would go on up. It's about an hour and a half from my house. I live south of Houston, and it's north of Houston, but I just, I basically would just go by myself and just go up there and look for back roads and look for places that, I hate to use the word squatchy, but places that looked, like there weren't a lot of people around, and you look for the signs of the tree structures, and there's lots of tree structures up there that I saw. And, the first, I'll say, like, weird thing that happened to me, the first or second time that I went up there, and this was probably about 6 years ago. I went down this trail, and I went about a half a mile, and there was this pond back in there. And I just sat down next to this pond. I was actually just looking for snakes, and I was smoking a cigarette, I think, and I was just kneeling down by a tree, just looking at this pond, just taking in the scenery. And I hear like a grunt. Well, first I'll go back. I saw some deer as I was going down this trail. There were some deer out feeding, and I kind of jumped them. They snorted at me and ran off. And that kind of comes into the story, I think. Maybe I interrupted something, but anyway, I'm sitting by this pond, and I'm there for about 10 minutes. All of a sudden I hear, just like a shotgun go off, and a tree come crashing down about not even 50 yards from me. And, looking at a Bigfoot, I was like, that's something that happens. Mm-hmm. And man, it scared the crap out of me. So I got up, said, I'm going to go try to find the tree. I'm going to go see where it's at, because it was real close. It was, right there by where you cross like a little ditch, and there's a tree broke about 8 foot up. Perfectly healthy tree, green, no wind, beautiful day. This tree was perfectly healthy. It was probably a diameter of about 7 inches or so. Pretty good diameter. Just broke about 7 or 8 feet up. Just totally broke. I looked for prints around it. I didn't see any, and it scared the hell out of me. I tried to get out. I went back down the trail. I didn't realize that I had turned off of that trail. There was like a blue ribbon tied on a tree where the path dead ended into another path. And I didn't realize that I made that turn. I'd forgotten. So I got on the wrong path. Well, then I got really freaked out. I got this weird feeling. They talk about infrasound. I'm not saying that that's what it was, or if it was just fear set in, because I thought, man, I don't remember going past this. I didn't cross this little bridge. There's a little bridge on this path, and I was like, oh, shit. So I'm going back and forth trying to find where I missed my path, and I finally found it and got out. But anyway, that was kind of the first, that piqued my interest. And then, I was hooked ever since going back. After that, I started going back as much as I could and spending as much time down there as I could. And I'd heard a couple of stories on Wes's show about some guys from East Texas, and I kind of knew the area just from going up there a lot. Well, listening to their interview, they kind of gave away a couple of spots that they go to. Well, I started going to those spots, and I ended up finding I don't know if you've probably heard of the Torn Up Camp.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I know exactly where that location is.
Oh, really?
It's at, yeah. And there's activity out there. And that's not the spot, though, that I see the Eyeglow all the time. But I have not been back to the Torn Up Campsite at night. I've only been during the day. But it's very eerie. It's an eerie place. It's spooky during the day going back into this area where that Torn Up Camp is down this road. It's just, you go 2 miles down a dirt road off the main road. You go 2 miles down this dirt road, then you go about 3 miles, turn left and go 3 miles down another road, and it dead ends. And, it's just, so it's out in the middle of nowhere, but it's pretty close to the Torn Up Camp area where I go, and I started witnessing, all I can say is Eyeglow. Mm-hmm. There's no ambient light, and I started seeing these two white. First, I thought it was one because it's probably 50 or 60 yards away where I was seeing this, but it would move back and forth, and I looked through binoculars. Well, there you could tell there was two eyes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, you'll see it for a second, and then it either ducks down or moves. Then you don't see it for a few seconds, and then you'll pick it back up again, and they're kind of ducking, and then I start looking around, and kind of freaked out a little bit about it, and then I was like, man, that is weird. And it's not to be confused with the balls of light. This was not the balls of light.
Right.
This was Eyeglow without me. I wasn't shining a light. There was no moon light. There was no ambient light out. Like I said, I was scared to even get out of my Jeep at that point, Well, I went back there a couple more times, and like I said, I get braver as I go back because I realize these things aren't really coming in on me, or so I'd get out and kind of walk around the Jeep. I saw another set of white eyes and then a set of red eyes, and I've seen this on multiple occasions. 2 sets of white eyes, 1 set of red eyes. Now, I don't see that every time. Sometimes I only see 1 set of white eyes. Sometimes I don't see anything, But most of the time I do see Eyeglow in this one spot. And, they're all Eyeglow. They all move. They all duck. You'll see them up high, maybe 7 or 8 foot high. And then you'll see them down by the ground level, moving back and forth and trying to duck. And, they realize I'm looking at them, and this is right by a body of water, which I almost every time, if not every time, witness the light phenomenon, the balls of light, when I'm having Bigfoot activity.
They're simultaneous or just around the same time?
Around the same time, it's almost like I know they're around. If I don't know, if I'm doubting whether they're around, I'm pretty sure they're around. If I start seeing the balls of light in the sky, it's like I know they're around, and I'll start having activity. Or if I'm having what I think is activity, then I'll start seeing lights in the sky, or I'll see weird lights right over the in the woods or above the trees. Mm-hmm. It's and this is just my experience.
And these are the larger orbs that kind of float.
These are the larger orbs, and they kind of float around while I'm having the Bigfoot activity. And this is, like I said, this is just my experience, but I'm almost convinced with as many of experiences as I've had, encounters as I've had with this phenomenon, that there's some kind of correlation between the lights and these creatures. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to speculate on what they are, why they show up when these creatures are around, but that's been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And this has happened numerous times. Now, I don't always see eyeglow with these creatures when they're around and when I know they're around. I can hear the footfalls. Sounds like elephants stomping. I hear them moving real fast through the woods. Sometimes I see eyeglow. Sometimes I don't. Funny story, there was one night I was camping at a pretty popular campground out there. And I was this was 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I poured some grease out. I'd made some bacon or sausage or something and poured the grease out kind of in between the campsites. And these things were around. There was no doubt. There was sticks being broke. I was seeing the little orbs. I was hearing footfalls. I was hearing whoops. I was, hearing tree knocks. They were around. There was no doubt about it. And I actually saw some eyeglow. Well, I see them move something with eyeglow moving in on this where this grease was. Well, these other two this girl and this boy, I say girl and boy, I don't know, they seem like they were probably in their 20s, pull up into this particular campsite. And I'm in the back. I'm in the very back of this campsite. I like to camp in the back because it's more remote. Well, they happen to pull in next to me, and there's not many people out there at the time. They pull in next to me. Well, they get out and have their headlights on, and they're fumbling around. They're trying to get their tent up and stuff. And, man, and I'm over there just trying not to laugh because they're hearing these things, and they're shining the light all around. And I don't know what these creatures were doing to them, but I could hear them moving, and they were maybe throwing stuff at them. They were hearing something because it was freaking them out. They would shine their light back and forth, and they would go get in the car for a little bit, turn the headlights on, and then turn them off, and then sit there. And their tent wasn't all the way up yet, but they'll turn the lights on, and they're tripping out of. They finally grab their stuff and leave, and I can see their eye glow back through underneath the trees back in there. These creatures, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, because they're like, I guess they're hearing this poltergeist kind of activity going on around them. They're probably thinking some kind of ghost activity or something. I don't know what they're thinking, but they finally just give up and they get in their car and they leave. And man, I was laughing. I mean, I probably shouldn't have been, but I kind of knew what was going on.
Right.
And these poor people were just, they were getting like just terrorized by these things. They didn't want them there because that grease was over there, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of used to me. I feel like they're used to me because I always go to the same camp spot. I try to act normal. I do my normal stuff. I'm not out there hitting trees. I'm not out there whooping. I don't do any of that stuff. The only thing I do is owl call sometimes because I do a pretty good owl call, and I'll try to call owls in. But other than that, I just act totally normal. I bring my girls out there sometimes. I keep a close eye on them, of course, but, they've heard it. They've heard the knocks. We've gone on hikes. They've heard the knocks. They know that Daddy believes in Bigfoot,
Mm-hmm.
And then you can tell it kind of creeps them out a little bit because we'll be out hiking somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. And this was just during spring break here, this last spring break, a few weeks ago. We were hiking out. I took them away from the campground, away from all the people, right? And there's a road that's blocked off and no cars are supposed to go back in there because some a-hole, after it rained, they brought their trucks through there and made some great big old ruts, and it was real muddy.
Mm-hmm.
So they had blocked it off. So I knew nobody was back in there. So I drove my Jeep. I didn't drive through the rut. I just went in far enough that I, not quite to where the ruts and stuff were, and parked. And the Lone Star Trail, which is the main trail through the forest, kind of crosses right there. And we start hiking, and we get back in there about a mile. And of course, they're wanting to hit the trees, and they're wanting to whoop, and they think it's neat. Well, then they hear whoops back, and they hear tree knocks, back, and they look at me like, oh my gosh, Dad. Is that Bigfoot? I was like, well, there's no people out here that we know of.
Mhm.
Not supposed to be. There's really not supposed to be any people out here. And we're out in the middle of the woods. And, yeah. So, me.
I was hiking with my son one day, and he's a skeptic. So he thinks Dad's crazy, for all this
Right.
stuff. And we're in not far off a road. We're in this park. It's in northern Maryland. And we start getting screamed at. And we got screamed at for about 5 minutes straight. And he is getting irritated. Like we're up on top of a hill. There's a cemetery in the woods at this place. So we had walked up on top of the hill where this old cemetery is, and there's kind of a dip down to the creek. Like a creek goes through a little valley off the hill. So whatever's screaming is down by the creek. And I'm standing there and I'm kind of looking at him, and he's getting irritated, and he's finally he says, "Are you happy, Dad?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking? You happy now? You got Bigfoot screaming at us?" And I'm thinking at the time, I'm thinking, I thought you were a skeptic. I thought you didn't believe in any of this stuff. And it was freaky. I said, "Well, what do you want to do? You want to keep hiking, or you want to leave?" And he was like, "I don't." I could tell he didn't want to go towards it. I started going towards it, and he was like, I said, "Don't you want to find out what it is, one way or the other?" And he kind of balked a little bit. We decided to cut out. It was pretty horrifying screams, to be sure.
Wow.
But now he will just say, "Oh, that wasn't anything." Now that he's away from it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. I think that happens a lot. And I think that's what keeps bringing me back is the fact that, I witnessed all this stuff, and I know that I witnessed it all. But then you go back into the real world, and you're like, and then you start questioning yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do.
Yep.
Is that really? I mean, did that really happen? I mean, did I really witness that? There's no way. So I start questioning myself, and it brings me back,
Yeah.
and it creates more questions than it does answers, because I've got way more questions now that I'm into this, than I ever had before. When I first started, I've had multiple tree breaks in places I've been. Just is it circumstantial that I've had like 5 or 6 different tree breaks within 75 yards of me? And I'm not talking about just natural breaks sounding like something forcing like a shotgun going off.
Yeah, when it's a new healthy tree, it's loud.
It is loud.
Yeah. Like a rotten tree is loud enough, but if they're like a new, healthy tree, it'll crack pretty loud.
Right. Yeah. It interests me, and
I've done the same thing. Like the place where we're seeing the lights, which do sound a lot like what you're describing. I mean, it looked like one light until we looked through binoculars, and then it's 2.
Right.
A lot of what you're describing is very much like what I saw, and we'll get back into that in a minute. But I find like when I'm not there, and a few months have gone by, maybe since I've been out there, and I'm talking to people about it. Well, I don't know. It's ever been a few months, but maybe a month has gone by. I try to get out there at least once a month, but I'll hedge my bets and kind of be like, I don't know, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but like we were looking at, there were 3 of us the one night. The first time I saw it, there were 3 of us together, and they're moving around. They're changing colors. We're hitting them with lasers. They're changing colors and going out. No man-made light does this. But I get away from it, and then I start going, well, maybe there's something back there I don't know about. You know what I mean? Maybe.
Right. Maybe it was a boat's light, or maybe there's a sign, or maybe there's something. I've walked back in there, Tim. Mm-hmm. I've walked in there exactly where I think that I've seen this eye. There's nothing that would give off light. There's nothing back in there.
Yeah, I've done the same thing.
Especially without a flashlight. There's nothing giving off light. There's no light post. And when you think about it, it's ridiculous anyway, because this thing is ducking, and they move so fast. It's scary. Like the way they move. when you see the eye glow, and then they're moving every now and then. I'll catch like almost like the shape of their head,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when they look down or whatever, you know. But the way they move is. But anyway, yeah, I've gone back in there, and there's just there's nothing back in there.
Yeah.
Of course, I do it during the daytime.
Yeah. I did the same thing. And see, I thought like, well, maybe I'm seeing something like far away. Somehow it's reflecting, but I realized then it's on the side of a hill. I'm not looking through a hill, you know,
Right.
like where I'm seeing it, it's on the face of a hill facing me. So I just, you know, it is what it is. I mean, it's and I keep going back and saying, you know, well, it's weird lights because I've never seen them in the silhouette of a creature. I've only seen the lights, you know. And my one buddy insists, no, that's Eyeglow. That's what it is, 100%. It was actually hearing you on Sasquatch Chronicles, which made me think, like, maybe that really is what it is, because what you describe sounds a heck of a lot like what I've seen. And like I said,
I'm
getting more into that.
I'm convinced that's what it is, Tim. And I know I heard your podcast after mine on Sasquatch Chronicles, and how you didn't believe it at first, that it was you thought it was these orbs or some kind of orb or something.
I just thought it was weird lights. That's all, you know. That's all I could say. It's just weird lights because, and I'm glad you say eye glow too. I think that's important because there's a difference. Like I've seen eye shine too. I've seen eye shine.
Shine's what I've hunted my whole life. I know what eye shine is.
Right.
Yeah, I know it, and I know what animals are nocturnal and which ones give off light, and even some of them you can even see when there's a full moon, their eyes will shine a little bit with the full moon. I know what that is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but this is different, and it looks like to me it looks like an LED light or something out there.
Mm-hmm. It's an internal light. Like it's not giving off. What I'm seeing is not giving off light necessarily. You know, it's not like a flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a dim, really dim. Well, actually, they're really bright, but it's hard to explain.
No, you have to let your eyes adjust to the darkness first, because when we first get there, we're not going to see them. We've noticed that, and it's about a half an hour or more of our eyes just adjusting to the darkness, and then they'll come up. Then they're easy to see.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, once your eye, you have to let your eyes adjust. And I hate using a flashlight. I don't use a flashlight unless I absolutely have to, for that reason, because I like to keep my eyes adjusted. Even if I have a fire going, I'll set my chair up to where I'm facing away from the fire a lot of times, especially if I'm having activity.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I really don't think, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure not all these creatures give off the eye glow. I don't know why some of them do. They may all do it, but when I'm having activity and it's really close sometimes, I don't see the eye glow. Now, they may be covering their eyes. I don't know. Or and other stories I've heard of, you know, I've heard so many encounters that most people don't talk about the eye glow. So maybe it's just, you know, certain kinds or certain types or certain areas. I don't know. That's another thing that kind of blows my mind, and it makes me apprehensive to talk about.
Right.
Because it is kind of weird. And I know most people, they get stuck in a paradigm to where, you know, they think that they know what this creature is, or, you know, certain ones think that, you know, there's no woo in these things, or just flesh and blood. So from my experience, there's a lot more to these creatures that are on the strange side that can't be explained, and that in my opinion are not just flesh and blood. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not natural animals. It just means they're not like other natural animals we know.
Right.
I don't know what they are, but they're weird. And
it's very weird. They have got some weird characteristics.
Yeah.
And some of the encounters, I've heard this multiple times, and I'm sure you have too. You probably heard it more than me, but people habituating these things, you know, 50 to 100 miles from their home, feeding these things, and then they follow them home. They stop feeding them one time, they stop feeding them, and these things actually show up at their house 100 miles away or 50 miles away, across rivers, through cities, through,
Yeah.
Have you heard that? I've heard that multiple times. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's
that's another thing. What is that?
Yeah. These I mean, if they're natural animals, they are gifted. They are the kings of evolution, because
absolutely, and they're way smarter than we are.
Yeah, and why would they put up with us? That's my other question. Like, they could be kings of the world because they have
everything.
I mean,
they could take over.
Yeah. And as far as like the eye, I don't know if they can turn it on and off, that Eyeglow, which is a bizarre concept anyway. But that means it's not just something that happens. That means it's something they're conscious of.
Right.
Because we see that at a distance, and then we'll hear stuff walking around us.
Right.
And never see those LED
and never see the
lights.
eyes. Right. And I'll hear stuff, footfalls, chest thumps, mouth pops, stuff like that, just beyond the tree line, and not see any kind of eye glow.
Yeah.
But then, other times I can see them peeking, especially in that one particular spot I was talking about. But I've seen them all over Sam Houston do that at times, see eye glow. And it's usually real fast. This one particular area I talk about, they'll sit there and stare at me. Like I can see them. And then once I stare at them for a few minutes, then they'll kind of duck behind something, and then they'll pop back up, and then they'll down low. But normally in other places, it's real quick flashes, almost out of the corner of your eye. Like, did I just see that? Even driving down some of those back roads, I'll see real quick eye flash. I mean, it'll be real quick, up high, like, like there's, I don't know, it's strange, man. It's.
Well, the stuff we've seen as far as, like, in this area, as far as, like, not, when I say flashes, I mean flashes of movement, not flashes of light.
No, like flashes of movement, but with the eye glow, like I see eye shine. Now it could be my headlights, shining off there, because I do have my headlights on. This is at night when I see it, but I'll see a real quick flash. Usually, if it's a creature, a nocturnal creature, you see it like crossing the road, or you see it staring into the lights for a few seconds, or bobcat, coyote, coons, raccoons, So. I don't know.
Yeah. So you've seen the lights change colors too, right?
I have. Yeah, that was probably, that one really bothered me. I mean, I've got goosebumps right now talking about it or thinking about it. I was camping at this same location, and I had taken some of these back roads before, I went and cut up firewood, deadfall, and I had some time, so I went down some of these forest roads and stuff that were gated, but people had made trails around them, and you really weren't supposed to do it, and but I was like wanting to try to get off into some of these isolated places, so I had been driving around doing that, and then I went a couple places, and one particular spot I stopped. This was, remote area. Got out, and I was looking at some of the wood. I was going to pick up some of the wood and put it in my Jeep, bring it back for firewood, cut it up. Got out of my Jeep, and something screamed at me. So I was like, yep, okay, well, I need to be moving along. And it was getting pretty close to dark anyway, so I got off of this forest road and kind of started heading back towards my campground. And I actually turned the corner and turn off this gravel road onto another gravel road that heads straight back down to the campground. And through the trees, I see two sets of eyes moving like floating, almost float. They were moving so fluidly, not even making noise that I could hear. But it was two distinct eyes coming through the woods, and then they kind of split. They kind of split up. They were together, and they kind of split up, and then I lost them. So that freaked me out. Well, I get back to my campground, make the fire, make something to eat, da-da-da-da-da. And I go over to relieve myself, and I've got a headlamp on that, it's got adjustments on it. Well, one of them, it's not a real bright light as far as focus light. It's a real, it shoots out a lot of light, and in a big circle. You can adjust it. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Not a focus light, but a real covers a lot of area. And I was using this because I was hearing stuff in the woods right around me. So I'm walking right up to where the woods are. Well, I can look down like I'm peeing, like I'm looking down, and I can look up and I have my hat on, and I can look up with my head down, kind of look up out of the top of the brim of my hat, kind of just look up. While it looks like I'm looking down, well, I'm looking up, and this light has got such a big ring, and I see these eyes, and they're almost as big as like tennis balls, and I think on Wes's show I said about a foot apart, and it was big. I'm not exaggerating. They were at least 9 inches to a foot. I mean, apart. And wow. This thing was, and I could kind of see the outline of it because I had that light. This thing's head was a monster. It was 10 foot because the bushes and briar that was around there was like 8.5 foot tall, and this thing was hovering above it. The size of this thing's head, though, the only thing I can say is, I mean, this is a monster. I mean, it was just, and I almost think after I had time to calm down and all that, and have a little perspective, and looking back on it, I think maybe I pissed this thing off. This was more than likely the big daddy. This was Big Daddy of the woods of that area. And when I got screamed at in that location that was real remote, that I got followed back to my campsite by the big boy, and the big boy was checking out who is this? What are they doing? Kind of a deal. And that's just a guess. I don't know.
Right.
But anyway, this thing's eyes, not only were they far apart and huge, but they were changing colors from green to blue to white, green to blue to white, green to blue to white, green to blue to white. I'm like, what am I looking at? I mean, this thing's a monster. I mean, I kind of knew what I was looking at, but
were they changing that fast?
They were changing fast. They were changing blue. And I don't know if it was in that particular order. I think sometimes it was green to blue, and then it'd be green to red, and then it'd be a blue. And you know what I mean? No consistency to it, but it was real fast. Yes, it was. They were changing real fast. And was that his mood? Was that his? I don't know. Right. I don't know what that was, man. I've never seen that before or since.
Wow.
Never seen anything that big in my life.
And these still look like the kind of LED looking lights.
Yeah, because I took my light. I actually took my light off of it. I could still see the eyes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it went all. I heard something move through there, and I actually got bluff charged a couple times that night too, where I had to turn on my big 1800 lumen flashlight. I was like, hold on there, big boy. I said something like that. I turned the light on because, I've heard some pretty reputable guys. Bob Garrett was saying, a laser pointer or a bright flashlight's the best way to stop them, instead of pulling out a firearm, pull out. So I just pull out my flashlight because I could hear something charging, and they got real close. I don't know if it was the same one, but there was definitely one charging through there. And I turned that light on and stopped immediately. I never saw it at that point, but yeah, that happened a couple of times that night. And,
I don't know if I'd have stayed.
I just got in my Jeep. I rolled the windows up, and this was during the summer, so it's hot. I mean, it's hot down in Texas and stuff. I just left my Jeep running and rolled the windows up and stayed because it was this at this point it was 1 or 2 in the morning, but so yeah, and I stayed there, but I locked the doors and rolled the windows up and didn't really sleep much. Kept my eyes pretty peeled. I was pretty shook up. I was really shook up. And I probably shouldn't be driving anyway when I was that shook up leaving. So
yeah, that's true.
I stayed, but it took me a while to get. It still shakes me up when I think about what in the hell I saw.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. See, the ones we saw, they were changing colors, but it was like more slowly. Like it was like they kind of fade real slow from white to like blue, and then into green, and then kind of an orange, and then they go back to white. And sometimes I say they blink out. Maybe they were moving. You know what I mean? Maybe it just seemed like they were blinking out. If these were creatures, maybe they were moving, and it just appeared to blink out, or maybe they were ducking behind something. And I know the longer we were there, the more of them lit up, though, which was disconcerting. And the closer they got that first night we saw them, to the point where at some point the one guy left and it was just 2 of us. And he turned to me at some point and said, I think it's done. I think we're done for the night. Not that it was still happening. The lights were still there, but it was just the mood changed. And
right.
I kind of agreed with him. I was like, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's time to go. The only time we could make him change fast is when we hit him with the laser. And when I talked about this on Wes's show, somebody was like, why are you shining lasers in Sasquatch eyes? I didn't know that. At the time, they were just weird lights to me. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like, I don't want to do it now because no matter what it is, because I feel like it's poking at the phenomenon. I don't want to like irritate whatever it is. I'm not trying to do that.
And that's what I've heard. I've heard that too. And I've actually played with the orbs with a laser pen too, knowing any better. Yeah, not knowing any better, and then being heard later by several different people that know about these things, that I've heard on interviews and stuff like that. Not to tempt them or not to. Did
the orbs respond to the laser?
No, they would just go out. Most of the time it seemed like they just went out. They didn't change colors that I remember. That they would go out and then they'd reappear somewhere else. But it didn't really. Now I will say they give off this feeling of an intelligence. There's some intelligence to these orbs, because it's like they don't like to be looked at very long, and they go out. But they want you to look. It's almost like they want you to see them, and the more you look at them, the more they appear. But the more they'll disappear and they'll reappear somewhere else.
Right.
And I know that sounds kind of contradictory, but I don't know how to explain it. But
well, like we were saying, maybe that's another distraction thing. Maybe
it could be.
Yeah, maybe they want you to be looking at those orbs while they're running off behind you somewhere or doing something.
What are they? But what is it? How does it correlate? I mean, it just blows my mind.
I have no answers. I love the questions, I love, I think the world of Bigfoot is changing in that at least people are starting to talk about this weird stuff. I think they used to bury it in the past.
They did.
Don't talk about that weird stuff, And now people are like, well, no, this is happening. This is what I saw. Let's talk about that. And I think it's okay not to have answers.
I think you've been a big part of that, Tim.
Well,
I think you've been a big part of that in your book.
So.
Yeah, in your books. I think because it's funny how once you came out with, hey, let's talk about this stuff. It's what it is. I've heard other people that used to not want to talk about it are talking more about it now.
Yeah.
There's still a few that won't. There's some of them old timers, and you probably know who I'm talking about. Some of the ones real popular, Bigfoot researchers, kind of know-it-alls that just will not talk about the weird stuff. And if they've been doing it long enough that they've seen some kind of weird, but they won't. There's a couple of them that will not talk about it.
Yeah, but some folks, like some of the folks from the Outlaws, are coming around. I saw.
They are. Matt, absolutely. He's got balls, and that's kind of who I was talking about. But Matt used to not. He used to think they were flesh and blood, and they were just a normal, just an undiscovered ape. He wouldn't talk about the weird stuff, but he's come around. He's come around a lot.
Yeah, I think. And we don't have to say they're supernatural. We don't have to say they're paranormal.
No. I have no idea what they are.
Yeah, just say we don't know what they are. I mean, I tend to lean that way just because I'm a folklore guy, and there's a lot of stuff in folklore that sounds like the same stuff, but I don't know. It's just my idea, and I'm ready to be proven wrong. Man, if somebody could prove it's some kind of natural animal, I'm open to it. I'm absolutely open to it.
If it's something like a firefly, the way they give off light,
right?
Are they, and the way they can blend in? Well, there's chameleons and lizards that can blend in.
Yeah.
Do these things have, so those abilities, some of those abilities are out there, but some of the things that these things do, the way they move, the way they move, to me, the way they move and the way they have the eye glow that they can give off when they, to me, those two things there are just two of the things I just can't get past.
So how many times have you seen like actual creatures, like bodies?
Well, I mean, are you talking about like, I don't count like the eye glow when I see like the silhouette.
Yeah,
I don't really count. I don't really count that. Yeah, even though I know that's what it is. I mean, if I count that, then I've seen one. I saw the one when I was 15, and I saw the 1, 2, like 5 different times that I've seen them. But only one day sighting that was, when I was 15, the one that I actually saw from.
Yeah.
And there was nothing supernatural about that one, nothing weird about that one, just a day sighting, just a regular old da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
It was a smaller one.
And that's why I say, like, I don't blame, like, people, like the people who come out and say, no, I'm sure it's a regular animal. They're most of the times the people who had roadside crossings, or they're hunters who just happen to see one, walk by in the woods or something. And so I don't blame them for thinking that. You know what I mean? Like you said, you would have thought it was a natural creature for sure, if that's all you ever experienced. If
that's all I would have experienced, yeah. And then started looking into these things and the way they communicate and the way they build these structures and the way they, they're obviously very smart and and they've got some abilities that are very, very just out of this world almost.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if no mammals have bioluminescence, no great apes have a tapetum lucidum, which is the reflective part in the eyes.
Right, none of them reflect in the dark. I don't think any of them do, or not nocturnal.
Not great apes. There's some like low order monkeys that do, but as far as great apes go, none of them have a tapetum lucidum. And apes don't have thick skin, which, I mean, from reports of people shooting them and stuff, these things, would have to have super thick skin. And so they have so many things that are like specialized evolution, if they're natural creatures. You know what I mean? Which means they're amazing. I mean, what an amazing thing.
Almost like a super soldier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, if you were to build something that in a lab, as far as a killing machine, that's stealthy, more stealthy than a special forces ranger, army ranger, or a SEAL or anything. What better thing could you build? That has thick skin, thick bone structure, thick muscles, that's that big, that can rip your head off and you not even know it, can be within 3 feet of you and you not even know it.
Right. Yeah, I think when you hear them is when they want you, like they want you to hear them.
They want you to. When you see them or hear them, it's because they want you to.
Yeah,
and that's another thing about these creatures. How in the hell can they sneak up to within feet of you without making a noise, going through briars?
Yeah.
I mean, because if we try to go through, even pine, I'm dealing with piney woods, but still, there's live oaks and other things that drop little branches, and you have just thickets. Huge. You wouldn't believe how thick a pine forest can get, or maybe you can, but to go through it quietly, off trail, off of a game trail. They're not even on game trails a lot of time. They walk beside the game trail. How are they so stealthy and be that big?
Right.
Their pads of their feet must just be unbelievable. They're just total muscle control, or something.
Yeah, it's either that or just some sort of unknown way that they do it that we just don't even.
We don't know.
Yeah, understand.
Wow.
Because yeah, absolutely. The one time we were at the one place that I've been talking about, we don't turn our flashlights on either for the same reason. It ruins your night vision.
Right.
So every time we're there, we'll say, kind of like, okay, we're getting ready to leave. So the next time we hear something weird, we'll kick on the flashlights and see if we see anything. And we walked up to the edge of the woods, and something grunted at us. And I mean, it sounded like it was right in the tree line. And it was a low grunt. I had the recorder running too, and I can't pick it out of the recorder, but it was enough where it backed us up, and you can hear us both go, whoa, at the same time. Backed us up about 15 feet away from the tree line. And that was the cue. So it's like I hit the flashlight, I shined it there, and then I panned over to the side, and that's when I saw eyes shine. Now this was definitely reflective, but it was way high up off the ground. It was looking right at us, and it was big. I mean, this looked like eyes the size of a fist. I have another guy who's like, you saw an owl. I'm like, maybe, but it had to be a one big owl if that was an owl.
Right.
Right. And it, you could tell it turned its head. You could see like the eyes move. It turned its head, and I'm guessing started walking away, and then kind of turned back and looked one more time. We caught the eye shine. Because my buddy didn't see it when I first hit it. It was facing forward, looking right at us. And I was like, whoa. And then he looked up, and he saw it turn, and then he saw it look back, like, I guess, over its shoulder. I don't know, as it was walking away. That's the way I imagined it, like from the way but that was definitely, like, reflective light. That whatever that was, that wasn't, it's self-illuminating,
Right, and I've heard that, too. That I know of, I haven't picked up the reflective light other than when I'm driving and I see little flashes. I'm not sure what that is. I can't say what that is, but I really haven't seen the eye shine. I've seen the eye glow. But I've heard a lot of other people say they use a flashlight and they've seen the eye shine. Which is more natural. For a nocturnal animal, that's natural.
Right, but still shouldn't be in a grade ape. if that's what
it shouldn't be in a grade ape, and it shouldn't be able to change colors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
People will say red and blue and green and white. And
so have you ever heard any sounds that don't seem like they belong while you've been out there?
Oh, yeah. Yes. No, many times. A lot of times around 10 o'clock or so, the coyotes will go off. But before the coyotes go off, you hear something a lot deeper and a lot, bassier, louder, longer scream. And then the coyotes will start going off. I've heard owls making an owl sound, but it has to be like, I call it a 500-pound owl.
Right.
And then it goes into like, I've actually heard them before start with an owl sound and then go into kind of a monkeyish, just start going off on some other sound. I hear dog bark, real big, bassy dog barks out there, and there are there are houses around certain parts of those areas and everybody has dogs, out there that seems like anyway. But I've heard them imitate dogs, and I know that's what it is because it'll be places where there's no houses, like no houses, and it'll be a single dog barks, not like coyote yips, but like a huge dog barking. Heard that. I've like what you were talking about being grunted or growled at. I was at the Stubblefield Bridge out there in the forest, and there's been a lot of encounters around that Stubblefield Bridge. But I was out there one night, and a lot of people fish off that bridge. Well, this night it just got through raining, so there was nobody out there. I walk up there, it was right before dark. I'm walking out on the bridge, and I'm almost to the other side, and I'm just looking down the water. I try to act natural when I'm out there, you know. I don't act like I'm trying to like look for Bigfoot, you know. So I'm just looking down the water and just, you know, enjoying the sights, whatever. And I hear, the only way I can explain it is a demonic growl come from the edge of the woods, and I'm probably 20 yards from that wood line. Right when you get off the bridge, it turns into woods. You know, it's right down, pretty close to the water. I hear this, and there's no human, there's no alligator, there's nothing that can make this guttural growl. It just had. I explained it as a demonic growl is what it says. What I would think. Not that I've ever had a demon growl at me,
right.
But what I would think of is if a demon was to growl at me, it was real guttural and it was real serious growl. I was like, yeah, well, and start walking back the other way. Yeah, that was something unusual.
A few weeks back, and this is something I think it was Ron Moore talked about this when they were up in that Sierra camp in the 70s. They would hear this sound, and I thought, man, that's one of the oddest things. Now, I had heard before what sounded like metal gears turning at another location, and this is this I was hiking on that area that I wrote my first book about, Toad Road, and we were in the middle of the road. So either end, there's it connects with roads. It's not a road anymore; it's a washed out, basically trail, sort of. It's not much of a trail anymore either, but we're in the middle of it. We're right in the middle, so there's no roads around. And I heard it sounded like a car door slamming. And I swear, I think it was Ron Moore had talked about hearing that. And I thought, what a weird thing, like out in the middle of the woods. And it was right beside us, too. Like right on the side of the hill. Like clear as day, car door slamming right there. And that, to me, that's been like the weirdest thing so far, because it's like there was no cars around, there's no road around that point, you know, and it was right beside us. And I looked at the guy I was hiking with. I was like, "Did you hear that?" And he was like, "What was that?" I was like, "It sounded like a car door slamming." And I'm looking for 4-wheel drive paths or something, you know, like thinking like
right.
like maybe somebody like cut in a 4-wheel drive, but it's just nothing out there. It was
wow.
It was weird. That's the weirdest thing I've ever heard, and the fact that, like I said, I'm drawing a blank, but I think it was Ron Moorhead. I know somebody. It was one of those old school researchers were talking about it.
I love Ron Moorhead.
He's great.
He's great. He seems like a great guy. I'd like to meet him.
Ron was one of my favorite stories. Is I've never interviewed Ron, but I wanted to use a clip of the Sierra Sounds on one of my records for my band, and I wrote him and asked him, and he just gave the coolest response. It was just the ultimate like response. I said, hey, could I use like, you know, I forget what it was, like 10 seconds, 20 seconds of the Sierra Sounds, you know, on this album I'm doing. I'd really like to, you know, put it there. I'm not, you know, I'm doing it respectfully. I'm not making fun. It's not a joke. You know, I kind of explain what I was doing. And he wrote back, and it was just so cool. He was like, hey, I didn't make those sounds. Bigfoot did. Do what you want with them.
That's I can see him responding like that.
Yeah, it was so
he's
cool.
He's so cool.
Yeah.
You know, he's just and brave. That guy is brave.
Oh yeah, what an adventure. I mean, he's had a what an adventurous life he's had.
That guy has big old brass balls. That guy, huge cojones on him. Absolutely. And I totally believe 100% about the whole Sierra Sound.
Those tapes.
I've heard him make those. I woke up one morning. I failed to mention this. at my campsite. It was early. It was the sun. The sun had just come up, and the light was just coming up. And I woke up. I don't know why. Something woke me up, and I just sat there in my Jeep, and I could hear, because I'm way back in the back of this campground. Well, there's a road that runs by. The road that comes to the campground, to the main gate, runs right there by where this back campground, and then it's all woods and swamp on the other side, and that's where these things stay. And I wake up and I hear that samurai chat or something is getting after. It's almost like they're disciplining some of the other ones or something. Just going on. And I wish I had my recorder going, because a lot of times I'll leave my phone, I'll leave my recorder on top of my Jeep, and I didn't do it this time, and I could not believe what I was hearing.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. There's no doubt in my mind what that was. I didn't see them, but it was right over there. It was right over, within 100 yards of me. There's these sounds, and so I've heard them make that sound. It is unbelievable. I'm just thankful that I was able to have the opportunity to hear that, because that just blows my mind.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I mean, the work they've done on that, like kind of proving it's a language and stuff, that's incredible. I mean, that's just really incredible stuff.
Incredible. And they've had them come up like really close.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
They talk about that. I guess they called it a cabin. I think in later years, Ron started calling it a shelter. They used to call it a cabin, I think. I'm sure you've seen pictures of it. There ain't much to it, like what they were in.
No, I thought they were in a tent at times.
It wasn't much more than a tent. It was I think sometimes they did set up tents as well.
Yeah, I remember tents, but
but
maybe I haven't seen all of them.
The main thing, which got called a cabin in the past, is it's like a few logs propped up against a tree. Basically, they made like this very, very primitive kind of thing, and that's where they were. So it's
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got, and it's from what I understand, it's way out in the middle of nowhere, and in the Sierra. And to have them come up that close, he actually talks back to them.
Yeah. Yeah, those tapes are incredible. Like, whatever it is.
They are incredible.
Whether you think it's Bigfoot
what I heard was from a distance, and I just heard it for like maybe 7 to 10 seconds. I heard it from a distance. This guy's getting them like right up close in camp. He's in multiple times on tape.
Yeah. Whether you think it's Bigfoot or not, whatever it is, that's an unknown language, and something's making those sounds. They prove
what is making that sound.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not people.
Right.
Well, it may be a form of people, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, they're incredible. I left tapes out overnight, or a recorder. I still say tapes, man.
I know, me too. We're probably from the same era.
I left recorders out overnight, and I got some kind of. It sounds like language or something. Now it doesn't sound like the Sierra sounds. This sounds like more like what they describe as like the deaf people talking. And it was like 4 a.m. I can't imagine who would have been out there at the time. I just left the recorder and went back and picked it up the next day, kind of thing. But it sounds like what my buddy describes as deaf people talking. I don't know, but you can't make out anything. But it doesn't have that.
I've heard that too. I've heard of people talking about how they sound like deaf. Deaf. I don't remember if I've heard recordings of that or just heard podcasts people talking about they sound deaf, or like they look like they have Down syndrome, or sometimes they talk like they're Down syndrome, or maybe mildly retarded. No offense, but
no, it's just how people describe their appearance and so forth. Yeah.
Their appearance and the way they talk, you're kind of deaf, or whatever. But I've heard that too.
Yeah, but to me, it just sounds like a language. I can't make it out. You know what I mean? What it is? It's far enough away from the mic. but I don't think it's English because I mean, I've listened to it a million times, but who knows?
I bet you have. Yeah.
But
and that's another thing about these things is how in the hell are they avoiding all these game cameras?
Mm-hmm.
It's uncanny how they can, and I'm sure it's the infrared on them or something, or they can hear the electronics. There's something, but no other creature avoids them.
Yeah, I know. We get photos of, like, according to Pennsylvania, we don't have mountain lions. We get them on game cameras, not regularly, but, often enough to prove that they're here.
Right.
And I think it was in Louisiana, there was some bird they thought was extinct, and they caught it on a game cam.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I know there's a lot of those creatures. I know a lot of Sasquatch in Louisiana. A lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there are. Yeah, that'd be
There's a lot of forests and swamps. That'd be a great place to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'd love to go out with you sometime. If you weren't so far away, that'd be pretty cool.
Well, I got to make a trip down. I got to make a trip down to Texas sometime. So if I do, and you're willing to be a guide, I'll go.
Absolutely, I'll take you. Absolutely.
All right, we'll do it. Because
okay.
I got friends down there like, hey, you got to come down. So I'm good buddies with Clint from OK Talk, and he's out of Dallas, and then I got a real good buddy in right around.
I like his. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that one. He's good. That's a good podcast.
Yeah, and I got a real good buddy. He lives right around Houston there. So and actually, the girl used to sing for my band. She lives right in Houston. So I have many reasons to visit Texas, and I've never been. So I'm going to have to make my way down there.
There's so much activity down here. I can take you to some good, and I'm sure your friends can take you to some good spots too. But that'd be cool to get together and go do that.
Yeah,
that'd be real cool.
I got to make time to do it. I got to get this book. When I get this book done that I'm writing with Josh, I think it's going to be 2 volumes because we got so much material. But when I get that done, I'm gonna take some time and off as far as from writing and stuff, and that should give me some time to do a little bit of traveling because I haven't really. I traveled the country when I did music, but I never saw anything except like the inside of clubs and the ceiling over whatever couch I slept on. Right.
So
I really want to see the country now. Now that I might play music here and there, but if I ever do that tour again for music, I'm not playing every night like I did before. I want to see the country. That's way more important to me now.
Yeah, and I like your music too. Your music. What's the best way to get your book?
Either direct from me or Amazon works. Either one, or I mean, you can order it into your local bookstores and stuff, but I don't know if they'll stock it. You know what I mean? Like they can order it.
When is yours and Josh's book coming out, or is there already a volume out?
No. It's hopefully by the fall we're doing it. We keep finding more information, and right now I'm writing the lights chapter, the stuff on lights. So your story's going to be in there. So.
Oh, awesome! Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
This is a dual purpose interview, so it'll be on the podcast, and then I'm taking the information and putting in that lights chapter too, because it works right with the stuff I'm talking about. Because man, I've got people saying, and they're saying glow. These people are saying their eyes lit up like fire. Back in the 1800s, they're saying like weird. They didn't have descriptions like LEDs back then, so they're saying unnatural light or. Lit up like balls of fire and this and that. So, I mean, people have been talking about them lighting up for a long time. And that's why I
would have never believed it. I would have never believed it until I saw it.
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about seeing the red eye, and I thought it's bullshit. Like it was just coming from some kind of, until I saw it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I used to hear other researchers talk about that. Like, it's eye shine. It's not eye glow. People just don't realize where it's coming from, it's some reflective. But when you see them, it's like, nah, that's not reflective light.
No, it's not. It's absolutely the real thing, and maybe people will pay attention more. And I think people just don't pay attention unless you're looking for it. Then you see it, But because like I said, I've been in the woods hunting my whole life, and I never paid attention. I'm sure there have been times where I've heard tree knocks and stuff like that out hunting that I wrote off as somebody just, roofing a house or, something,
Right.
I don't remember a particular instance, but I'm sure there were times that. Most hunters have probably had some kind of, whether they'll talk about it or whether they even notice it, is one thing. But
a
lot of
most people have had something weird. Maybe not Bigfoot, but something. Right. I know this from just getting out there and talking to people, and they'll find out what I do or what I write about or what I do the podcast. I'm like, oh, that's nonsense. But then you get them talking for a little while, and they'll be like, well, there was this one thing that happened to me.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
So,
I saw my dead Aunt Betty. She appeared in the.
I had a guy call me up and tell me it's all nonsense, and then tell me a story about seeing a ghost cat that hopped on his bed. And he was petting it, and he thought a cat got in his house, and went back to sleep. Woke up in the morning, started looking around for how this cat could have gotten in his house, and he can't find, no windows are open, no doors or anything like that. And he goes, I must have dreamed it. Then his wife comes down in the morning and says, why were you petting a cat in bed last night? And that's the guy who called me to tell me it's all nonsense, and like, okay.
It's like down in the South, it's real bad. It's like people don't talk, and there's houses right up in these forests and stuff. There are houses. And I want to stop and talk to them, but 99% of the time, you're probably just going to have the door slammed in your face. They're not going to talk about it. I was scared, knees buckling, about to on myself when I saw that great big monster, that night with the eyes changing color. He caught me literally with my pants down, and I've never had fear like that. And it went away, even though I did get bluff charged a little bit later. But if these things wanted us, they could get us, and they may get people every now and then, but for whatever reason. But
that's what I tend to go with, and that's why I can usually push through the fear. You know what I mean? I can because it's like if they want you,
they've got you.
Yeah,
you're done.
Yeah,
you'll never even know it. You'll never see it coming, and it'll be quick. Yeah. And you'll never even know that your head got popped off.
I tend not to worry too much about mountain lions. Like I said, I know they're here. I've seen them, so I know they're there. But you can't. If I'm going to worry about that, you'll never hear them coming.
You're never going to hear them coming, and they're going to break your neck because they're going to. Yeah. That's what they go for, the back of your neck, and you're just. Yeah, those jaws are going to snap your neck. You're never even going to know it. Yeah. So if you see them, that's a good thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I figured.
Like my dad. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just figured I can't worry about it. I can't worry about that because it's what are you going to do? Not go outside.
Right. Like my dad always taught me. My dad taught me to overcome fear. And he would, when I started hunting, and sitting in a stand by myself at 9 or 10 years old, walking to my stand in the morning, well before dark. Well before light, in the middle of the dark. I've got this gun, and the worst thing I thought was out there at the time was bobcats and coyotes. But he would say, the same thing that's out here during the day is out here at night. You just can't see. Mm-hmm. You just can't see as well, but it's the same things out here during the day. He always taught me little tricks to overcome fear, and I think that's how I'm able to go and do research by myself and not get so fearful that I can't do it. I can overcome it. Like he used to say, if you hear the gunshot, that's good, because you weren't the target. Because you would have never heard. You would have never heard the gunshot.
That's a good point.
You would have never heard.
Yeah.
So just little things like that. I've just always been able to overcome fear. And I just credit my dad with that. Not, I'm not saying I'm Superman or anything like that at all. I'm just a regular guy, but, I enjoy being in the woods and I enjoy, I've really gotten into this whole unknown thing, I'm addicted to it. It's just I can't get enough. It's just mesmerizing. It just mesmerizes me. It just totally I can't explain it.
Hey, you're talking to the guy who's right there with you. This is.
I hear. Yeah, I know you are, and But anyway, I look. Let me know if you come down to Texas and if your schedule opens up or whatever, and for sure, give me a shout, man. I'd love to meet you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to make it happen because like I have too many reasons to get to Texas. One of them is that I've never been, so I'm definitely going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. Like I said, maybe if I can get the book done, maybe the fall. But if not, it might be in 2020.
Yeah, the fall will be the best time too.
Yeah.
The fall's a really good time, but any time really out there in this forest, I'm telling you, we will have encounters.
All right,
we'll have encounters. So, but anyway.
All right, Jeremy, thanks for sharing your stories with us.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back next week with another episode of Strange Familiars. Again, if you want to contact us, strangefamiliars.com is the website. Our email is strangefamiliarspodcast@gmail.com. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts, music, books, art, podcasts, and more. darkhollerarts.com. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. Go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com for more. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars. Go ahead and like the page there, and you can join the Strange Familiars Gathering group as well.
should shine in blue. They were pulsing like a heartbeat, dreamlike ghostly glow. Rings of blue flame, deeper than the sky, so like the sun's reflection, shining in